Mr. President, Johannes Petra from Austrian National Television.
How are you?
You once said that you would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. You later said that sarcastically.
Of course it was sarcastic.
I would fix that within 24 hours. And if I win, before I get into the office, I will have that war settled. 100% sure. As president-elect, if I win this election, the first thing I'm going to do is call up Zelensky and call up President Putin, and I'm going to say, you got to make a deal. This is crazy.
Guarantee I could work that out. I guarantee. I know exactly what I'd say, by the way. I know exactly. I tell one guy this, and I tell one guy that, and I say, you better make a deal.
But you've now been in office for 5 months and 5 days. Why have you not been able to end the Ukraine war?
As Trump took questions from reporters at the NATO summit, we were given a wee snippet into how Trump is perceived around the world.
And a question on Spain. Are you satisfied with today?
Oh, I think Spain's terrible what they've done. No, I do. They're the only country that won't pay the full up. They want to stay at 2%. I think it's terrible. And, they're doing very well. The economy is very well. And that economy could be blown right out of the water with something bad happening. Spain is the only country that, are you from Spain?
Yeah.
Good, congratulations. You're the only country that is not paying. I don't know what the problem is. I think it's too bad. So we'll
take, for instance, this back and forth with a reporter from Austrian TV, where he basically put Trump on the spot over his claim that he would end the Ukraine-Russia war in a matter of 24 hours. And instead of answering, he instead just rambles about himself, bragging that he ended other wars.
Go ahead, right in the back. Yeah, you tall one. The tall man.
Mr. President, Johannes Petra from Austrian National Television.
How are you?
You once said that you would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. You later said that sarcastically.
Of course it was sarcastic.
But you've now been in office for 5 months and 5 days. Why have you not been able to end the Ukraine war?
Because it's more difficult than people would have any idea. Vladimir Putin has been more difficult. Frankly, I had some problems with Zelensky. You may have read about him. And it's been more difficult than other wars. I mean, look, we just ended a war in 12 days that was simmering for 30 years, frankly. We ended Rwanda and the Congo. They're coming to sign the documents. We've already signed basic documents, but they're coming, I think, to the White House on Friday. We ended Serbia was going to go at it. But maybe the most important of all, India and Pakistan. And that wasn't whether or not they may someday have nukes like we're talking about in the Middle East, like we're talking about with Israel and Iran. It's just they have nuclear weapons. I ended that with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, look.
And then with the eyes of the world on him, he decided to take time to attack journalists based in the United States. The president and his defense secretary continued their onslaught after reports from CNN alleged that Trump's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities was about as successful as Trump casinos, Trump ties, and inevitably Trump phones.
Meeting for a tactical reason with President Putin?
Let him answer this one.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah. There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons, to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment. You know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain. devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel.
I know what you're thinking. This is exactly the type of person that you want heading up the world's leading defense department. Fresh, of course, from the hotel bar.
But you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less.
Trump launched an utterly unhinged, vile and misogynist attack on Truth Social aimed at CNN's reporter, Natasha Bertrand, saying, quote, "She should be fired from CNN. I watched her for 3 days doing fake news. She should be immediately reprimanded and then thrown out, quote, like a dog. She lied on the laptop from hell story, and now she lied on the nuclear site story, attempting to destroy our Patriot pilots by making them look bad." While screaming at the end, "Fire Natasha." So for anyone keeping count, Trump now wants the following pundits and reporters fired: Jessica Tarlov from Fox News, a Fox News pollster; Terry Moran, which seems to have been a success, and anyone else who dares question our fearless cult leader. Israeli sources were quoted saying that Iran had moved as much as 880 pounds of uranium enriched to 60% purity from a secure nuclear storage plant.
This question. You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have two questions for you, Mr. President. You just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of the impact of the strikes?
No, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given that we can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out. Okay, question, please go ahead.
And not to forget that Trump's very own vice president sounded anything but confident when he was asked about the details of the attack on Fox News. He did not confirm the complete and utter obliteration that Trump has touted.
You said totally obliterated. The president has said totally obliterated the Iran nuclear program.
Yeah.
Do you know for sure where all the highly enriched uranium is?
Well, Brett, I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons grade level? And can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? And we know, based on the success of our mission, of course, the leadership of the president, but the incredible skill of our military, that the two mission objectives are completely successful. We know that they cannot build a nuclear weapon. Now, you asked about the highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, like 900 pounds of it.
But what we know, Brett, is that uranium is something that exists in very large supply. Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon. I think that's an important point, Brett, because so many of the folks who have focused on the highly enriched uranium,
sure, 60%.
The main focus, Brett, has been to destroy their enrichment capacity, because we don't want that 60% uranium to become 90% uranium. That's the real concern, and that's what was so successful about our mission.
So after all this, if the Iranian government survives as is, what's to stop it from rebuilding over time if they in fact moved the 60% highly enriched uranium? You know, that's the concern.
No, the big concern, Brett, and this is again what we destroyed, is their ability to enrich uranium. If they have 60% enriched uranium, but they don't have the ability to enrich it to 90%, and further, they don't have the ability to convert that to a nuclear weapon, that is mission success. That is the obliteration of their nuclear program, which is why the president, I think, rightly is using that term. But here's the question. If Iran is desperate to build a nuclear weapon in the future, then they're going to have to deal with a very, very powerful American military again. Our hope is that the lesson that the Iranians have learned here is, look, we can fly a bunker buster bomb from Missouri to Iran completely undetected without landing once on the ground, and we can destroy whatever nuclear capacity you build up. I think that lesson is what's going to teach them not to rebuild their nuclear capacity.
Yesterday.
And again, not to ignore the fact that when Trump himself was asked about the intelligence report that he is blasting the CNN reporter over, he himself admitted that the evidence was inconclusive.
Should we go on? One follow-up on Iran. Both you and Secretary Rubio and Hegseth mentioned the leak. But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration.
And when you look across the board, right, Trump, Hegseth, Vance, they've all taken turns admitting that they, in fact, don't know for sure about the extent of the damage, yet insist it was an obliteration. I mean, the disconnect is a perfect metaphor for this current administration, constantly contradicting each other and reports as the American people are left in the dark. But if you want to see the light, go ahead and look at the recent polls.
Just what have we got, and break them down for us, if you will. How do Americans feel about these airstrikes?
Yeah, I think it's so important to note before we begin that these polls are a snapshot in time, right? These polls were basically completed before the ceasefire, the supposed ceasefire was actually made. Still, I think it's so important to note that Americans, not fans of this. And it's not just the CNN SSRS poll, it's a Reuters Ipsos poll as well. All right, the net approval rating on the U.S. airstrikes on Iran. You see it here, 12 points underwater. You're 12 points more likely to disapprove than approve of the strikes on Iran. How about Reuters Ipsos? 9 points underwater. You're 9 points more likely to disapprove. Look at that. You were 58 points more likely to approve than disapprove of those back in 2018 in the same general region, right in the Middle East. But compare that now to Iran, where you're 11 points underwater. I have never seen an initial military action of the type that we had in Iran over the weekend by the United States of America be as unpopular as this one was.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com. All 100% USA union made.